there's like a slight echo in these sort of raids of the government trying to target illegal working, which is a magnet for people coming to the UK illegally.
Home Office immigration raids on businesses, including nail bars, car washes, and barbers, have seen a 75% increase since Labour came to power. This is due to a government crackdown on illegal working in the UK. But what do these crackdowns mean for immigrants in this country? Is the UK government taking a leaf out of America's book when it comes to those ICE immigration raids? Let's explore this with Will Pavia, the New York correspondent for The Times. Hello, Will.
Hi there.
Hi there. So overnight, there's been more reports and footage on social media from Minnesota, where it seems those ICE agents have continued to operate. Can you just give us the latest on what's going on, particularly in Minnesota, and the wider debate about ICE?
Well, there are still protests in Minneapolis. There was quite a large one outside a shopping mall where ICE agents were seeming to be targeting. It was has a lot of Somali-owned businesses, and one of the supposed justifications of the Trump administration is that there was a lot of fraud being investigated, some of which involved Somali-owned businesses in Minneapolis. Minneapolis has a huge Somali community, and both Trump and Kristi Noem have sort of said that part of the ICE operation is to target fraudsters. I mean, in the case of a lot of the Somali Americans in Minneapolis, they are American citizens, and quite a small number of them are not. So it's not entirely clear what the ICE agents would be doing there. But this is a story that is obviously still rumbling on in Minneapolis. I'm no longer there, but it seems as if there are still protests every day.
And from looking from London, it seemed to be an incredibly febrile atmosphere. What was your experience of it on the ground?
Well, it was. I mean, people were very angry. Minneapolis is a very liberal city. It is also a place where strikingly sort of organized politically. Almost every neighborhood has a little neighborhood organization that's, I suppose, a bit like a neighborhood watch, but they sort of say that they kind of look after each other. And so these ICE agents appearing, these neighborhood organizations would all warn each other. And people would go out with whistles and blow their whistles to try and warn whoever might be the target of the raids. Schools were closed when I was there because there'd been an ICE raid on a school. Lots of restaurants had closed. So it was very tense, and there would be these sort of morning confrontations outside the building where a lot of the ICE agents were based, where people would sort of be trying to trace their cars, looking at their number plates, trying to work out where they were going, and also just trying to sort of distract them and preoccupy them with the protests rather than with sort of arresting more people.
Now, obviously, what happens in Washington eventually seems to make its way over to Westminster, and the big story that the Keir Starmer government's trying to put across today is the fact these immigration raids on businesses have been rising steadily for some time, and that's true before Labour took office. But the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is claiming this as a win. Do you think there's any sense of trying to echo the approach of the Trump administration? Obviously, ICE is fundamentally different to the UK border agency, but the kind of quite punchy tone here does feel as if there's some echoes.
I think there's probably some echoes. I think every sort of left-wing or liberal administration regards immigration as a potential weak spot for them, and that to be strong on the border is something that lots of sort of left-leaning administrations have tried to sort of show that they are in order to stop that as a potential line of attack. I mean, Trump has obviously taken the whole of Europe to task in his speeches at the UN. Last year, he sort of claimed that the entire continent was being overrun with illegal immigrants and that all of our societies were going down the tubes. I'm not sure that Shabana Mahmood is responding to that, but I suppose that there's like a slight echo in these sort of raids of the government trying to target illegal working, which is a magnet for people coming to the UK illegally. And I mean, I do look at the language around it, and I don't recognize, I don't see much of an echo of the way that it's talked about in the US, where they sort of say that they're targeting criminals and gangsters and paedophiles and so on. It seemed a lot more restrained in the UK, to be honest. They say, well, we're just targeting people who are working illegally.
And the other thing where there maybe is a kind of read across again is on TikTok, because the Home Office, for some reason, has launched a TikTok account this morning, which is aimed at showing the British public it's acting on immigration. And obviously the Trump administration has been putting out lots of kind of social media clips of its ICE raids. And I think Sabrina Carpenter, Olivia Rodrigo even have complained their songs are being used in these TikToks. I mean, how has this stuff gone down, and how much of this is the administration trying to kind of troll people or trying to actively get a message across, do you think? And what do you think about the UK doing similar?
I mean, I'm sure there is a bit of trolling going on. It's also a sort of direct reach to sort of try and fire up the base that maybe has sort of been a little bit split and disaffected with the Trump administration over the last year. And I think these TikTok videos are, they're pretty popular. But you're right, it's a very sort of punchy way of saying, oh, we're doing this, and sort of doubling down on what they're doing. And Trump is clearly very enamored of these sort of video clips that portray him as a sort of someone who doesn't back down and is sort of this tough kind of leader. I suppose that the Home Office presumably takes the same message, that these things break through, that they don't have to sort of worry about, how this will be covered by the media. They can go straight to people looking at their phones, and that must be part of the strategy.
Well, thank you very much, Will Pavia. That's the New York correspondent for The Times.